The storm rolled in just past midnight, the kind that doesn't knock. It kicks the door down. Rain lashed the windows like thrown gravel, and the wind howled through the pines, bending them into groaning skeletal shapes. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cooling mug of tea, watching the lightning split the sky. That's when I first saw it. A shadow. Not the kind cast by swaying branches or flickering streetlights. This one stood perfectly still in the far corner of the yard, blacker than the night around it, untouched by the downpour. My breath fogged the glass as I leaned closer. The shape was tall, too tall, its edges wavering like smoke. Then, flash, a bolt of lightning seared the sky, and for half a second, the shadow was gone. I told myself it was just the storm playing tricks, my imagination, frayed from too many late nights and bad coffee. But then, the thunder growled, low and long, and the shadow was back, closer this time. At the edge of the porch, my fingers tightened around the mug. The irrational part of my brain scrambled for excuses. A tarp left out, a trick of the storm. But I hadn't left anything in the yard. And tarps don't stand like that, don't watch like that. Another lightning strike, the shadow vanished again. I counted the seconds between flashes like a child counting gunshots. 1, 2, 3. Crack. The thunder shook the house. And when the light came, the shadow was at the foot of the steps. I lurched back from the window, tea sloshing over my wrist. The shadow didn't move like a person. It didn't walk. It just wasn't. And then it was. Closer, each time the lightning tore open the sky. My pulse roared in my ears. I fumbled for my phone, thumb hovering over 911. But what would I say? There's a shadow in my yard that only exists between lightning strikes? The power went out. The sudden darkness was suffocating. Only the erratic strobe of the storm lit the room now, each flash painting the walls in jagged blue-white. I held my breath, counting again. 1, 2, flash. The shadow filled the window. I screamed. The thing had no face, no features at all, just a void shaped like a man, its surface rippling as if underwater. It pressed against the glass and the temperature in the kitchen plummeted. Frost spiderwebbed across the pane. Then, darkness again. I bolted for the hallway, my socks slipping on the hardwood. The house was too small, too exposed. I needed walls, a locked door, anything between me and whatever was outside. The bathroom. I could barricade myself in the bathroom. Flash. The shadow stood at the end of the hall. I skidded to a stop. It was inside. How? The windows were locked. The doors were... Flash. It was halfway down the hall now. I backpedaled, shoulder slamming into the wall. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the foundation. The shadow didn't move between flashes anymore. It moved during them, advancing in the split seconds of light, freezing when the dark returned. I squeezed my eyes shut. If I couldn't see it, Maybe it couldn't see me. A mistake. The next lightning strike burned through my eyelids. I felt it before I saw it, the icy draft, the smell of wet earth, and something older, something beneath. When I opened my eyes, the shadow loomed over me, close enough to touch. Its hand, if it was a hand, reached for my face. Then the thunder came, not from the sky, from it. A sound like a landslide, like a mountain cracking open. The shadow's form shuddered, stretched, and for the first time, it spoke. Not in words, in memories. My father's voice the day he left, my mother crying behind a closed door, the name of my first dog, dead 20 years. It knew, it remembered. The next lightning strike never came. The storm paused, the world holding its breath, and in that endless second of silence, the shadow wrapped around me like smoke, then light. I woke up on the kitchen floor, dawn bleeding through the windows. The storm had passed, the house was silent, but my hands were freezing, and on the window, etched in frost, were 2 words. I'm waiting. Burst pipes. By the 3rd time, we noticed the water wasn't coming up through the floor. It was coming out of the walls. I knelt on the soaked concrete, watching as beads of moisture swelled between the bricks like sweat. They gathered, trembled, then fell in perfect unison, drip, 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 into the rising pool at my feet. The water smelled wrong, not earthy like groundwater should, but briny, thick with the iron tang of open ocean. That's when I saw the first shadow move beneath the surface. Not a rat, something with too many joints. The realtor never mentioned why the Victorian on Seagrass Lane was half price. Minor water damage, she'd said, clicking through photos of crown molding on her tablet. She didn't show us the basement. Didn't mention the previous owners had abandoned their furniture, their dishes, even their teeth in a mason jar above the sink. We should have asked why the bathroom mirrors were all bolted shut. The water rose faster after dark. I'd wake to the sound of sloshing below. My wife, Emily, murmuring about tides in her sleep. By morning, the basement door would be damp, the knob crusted with salt. We called plumbers, exorcists, the EPA. No leaks, no ghosts, no toxins, just water that shouldn't exist and the things that swam in it. Emily saw them first. Like eels, she whispered, her face lit blue by the baby monitor. The infrared lens showed them clearly, ribbon-thin shadows weaving between the crib legs. But they have hands. I laughed until I saw the footage. Fingerless palms, boneless wrists, trailing through the inch-deep water that now coated our daughter's floor every night. That's when we nailed the windows shut. The locks didn't hold. I found the back door wide open at 3 a.m., the wood swollen tight in its frame. Moonlight painted the hallway in liquid silver, revealing a trail of wet footprints leading upstairs. Small ones, child-sized. The nursery door stood ajar. The mobile above the crib spun lazily, though no breeze stirred the corpse-still air. In the crib, our daughter, sleeping peacefully. Beside her pillow, a single barnacle-encrusted seashell, not from any ocean on Earth. The marine biologist took one look at our water samples and paled. "These diatoms went extinct 60 million years ago," she said, shaking the vial. The microscopic creatures swirled, their glassy skeletons forming shapes that hurt to look at. "This isn't runoff. It's archaic seawater. Like something from—" She didn't finish, but we all heard the unspoken words from deep below the crust. Emily wanted to leave. I almost agreed, until the night I woke to find her standing waist-deep in the basement, her nightgown floating around her like jellyfish tendrils. The water glowed faintly, illuminating the things coiled around her legs. They weren't drowning her. They were caressing her. When I screamed her name, she turned slowly, smiled. "Don't you hear it?" she murmured. "The singing?" All I heard was the drip, drip, drip of walls weeping. They took our daughter on the solstice. One moment she was there, babbling in her high chair. The next, gone. Just a puddle on the tiles and the faint sound of laughter bubbling up through the floor vents. Emily walked into the basement and didn't come back out. The police found the door cemented shut with salt crystals. They didn't hear what I heard when they broke it down. The splash, the giggle, and far, far below the sound of a lullaby rising from the dark. I still live here. The new owners think I'm the caretaker. They don't question why I camp in the garden shed or why I keep the hose running all night to feed the thirsty soil. Sometimes, when the moon is right, I press my ear to the ground. That's when I hear them, Emily's voice mingling with our daughter's, singing along with the thing that used to be the house. The water's rising again tonight. Soon there'll be nothing left but the waves and the things waiting beneath. Exactly 12:07 a.m. One moment, rain lashed the windows like handfuls of thrown gravel. The next, nothing. No wind, no thunder, just a silence so thick it pressed against my eardrums. I lowered my book, the hairs on my arms rising. That's when I heard the footsteps on the roof. The weatherman had called it the storm of the decade. Power lines snapped by noon. Floodwaters swallowed the low roads by dusk. I'd holed up in my attic apartment with candles and a bottle of bourbon, waiting it out. But this wasn't natural. The footsteps moved deliberately from eave to peak, the old wooden beams creaking under weight they shouldn't bear. Not in this dead calm. I grabbed my phone. No service. The digital clock blinked 12:07 a.m., then 12:07 a.m., then 12:07 a.m. The first scrape came from directly above my bed, like claws dragging across slate. Slow, purposeful. I held my breath as something heavy shifted position overhead. A drip of cold water landed on my cheek. Then another. Tracing upward, I saw them. 5 perfect droplets forming between the ceiling boards, as if something was pressing down from the other side. The radio crackled to life without power. A voice I didn't recognize whispered through the static, "It's so much quieter up here." I threw a shoe at it. The moment the plastic cracked, the footsteps scrambled, not away, but toward the edge, toward the drain pipe outside my window. The gutters groaned under sudden weight. I barricaded the door with my dresser. Bad idea. The silence magnified every sound. My panicked breathing, the bourbon sloshing in my shaking hands, the unmistakable click of the bathroom window sliding up from outside. The storm hadn't stopped. It was holding its breath. I saw it first in the hallway mirror, a shape too tall for the ceiling, limbs folded at impossible angles to fit the cramped space. It didn't walk so much as unfold itself toward me, joints popping like wet twigs. The emergency lights chose that moment to flicker on. In the sudden fluorescence, the thing froze. It wasn't afraid. It was listening. The radio gasped back to life. Shh! Every candle blew out at once. The digital clock finally changed. 12:08 a.m. flashing, just as icy fingers closed around my ankle. The last thing I heard before the screaming started was the storm returning with a vengeance, rain hammering the roof, like it was trying to wash away the evidence. They found my door kicked in from the inside. My phone was still recording when the police arrived. 3 hours of dead air. Then my voice whispering the same phrase over and over. It's so much quieter up here. The coroner called it exposure. The landlord swore the attic had been empty for years. But every night at 12:07 a.m., when the storms roll in, the new tenant complains about footsteps in the ceiling and the dripping, always the dripping. I thought it would end. It had been raining for 7 days straight, a relentless, suffocating downpour that turned the streets into rivers and the air into something thick enough to choke on. I was walking home from the late shift at the diner, hood pulled tight against the storm, when I heard it. Help me. A whisper, barely audible, beneath the drumming rain. I stopped, turning in a slow circle. The street was empty, just flickering streetlights and black water swirling around my ankles. Then it came again, closer this time. You have to listen, not from beside me, not from behind. The voice came from inside the rain itself, as if the droplets carried words instead of water. I ran the rest of the way home. The next night it happened again. I took a different route, avoiding the stretch of sidewalk where I'd heard the voice. But the rain followed me, and so did the whispers. She's lying to you. This time I recognized the voice. Emily, my little sister, who'd drowned in Blackwater Creek 12 years ago, whose body they'd never found. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voice seeped through my fingers like the rain through my jacket. The hollows are hungry, Jess. They're always hungry. By the third night, I started seeing them. Not ghosts, not exactly. They were more like absences, gaps in the rain where the water refused to fall, human-shaped voids that flickered at the edge of my vision, the hollows. I told my wife about the voices, about Emily. Claire held me while I shook, her fingers tracing slow circles on my back. It's just grief, she murmured. The anniversary's coming up. Your mind's playing tricks. But when I lifted my head, Her reflection in the window wasn't blinking, and the rain outside wasn't touching the glass. I started carrying Emily's old teddy bear in my pocket, a stupid comfort, but the only thing I had left of her. The hollows hated it. Whenever my fingers brushed the matted fur, the whispers would stutter, the voids twisting away like smoke in the wind. That's how I knew they were real. On the 6th night, Claire came home with wet shoes but no umbrella. "You walked in this?" I asked, staring at the puddles spreading around her feet. She smiled. "It's not raining." But when I looked outside, the storm was worse than ever, and the hollows were gathered on our porch, waiting. The truth came in fragments, like the voices between the raindrops. Claire wasn't Claire. The real Claire had died a year ago, car skidding on wet pavement. I'd buried her in the cemetery by Blackwater Creek. This Claire, this thing, had come out of the hollows, out of the rain. "They take pieces," Emily's voice whispered as I backed away from my not wife. "Memories, faces, love. They hollow you out, and we're what's left." Claire's smile stretched too wide. "You always were the smart one, Jess." I ran, out the back door, into the drowning night. The hollows pursued me, their void bodies parting the rain like knives. I could hear them laughing, a sound like ice cracking, like bones breaking. Emily's teddy bear burned in my pocket. "The creek," her voice urged. "Hurry!" Blackwater Creek was swollen with storm water, the current gnashing at the banks like teeth. I fell to my knees in the mud, clutching the bear. "Throw me in," Emily whispered, and I understood. The hollows had taken her body, but not her voice, not her love. The teddy bear was the last tether, the last real thing in a world of stolen faces. I kissed the matted fur, then let it fall. The creek swallowed the bear in an instant. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the rain stopped, not slowly, all at once, as if someone had turned off a faucet. The hollows shrieked, their forms unraveling like smoke in the sudden silence. Claire, the thing that wasn't Claire, reached for me. Her fingers passed through my arm like cold water. And then she was gone. The police found me at dawn, half frozen, on the creek bank. They said I'd been missing for 3 days, said Claire had reported me gone after I'd vanished during the storm. I didn't correct them, because the woman who came running when they called her, the woman with Claire's face and Claire's voice and Claire's wedding ring, wasn't my wife. I could see the hollows in her eyes. And when the rain started again that afternoon, I heard Emily whisper one last time, "They always come back."